All right, welcome back. We're going to be going over user input and options today. All right, so, and in essence, essentially script integrity as well. If you're going to be using user inputs and options correctly, you should be doing script integrity as well. Basically what the goal is for this is that we need to get to a point where our scripts are usable and flexible. Because up to this point, we've made our own scripts. We knew exactly what our parameters were. However, people are going to be using your script. You're going to be using you're going to be using scripts that other people make, and then you're going to be making scripts that other people use. And then on top of that, even after you leave, those same scripts are still going to be used. So you still have to bake in some integrity to that script, and then you also have to make it where you can get to a point where someone else can use that script and understand it without much mental effort, because there's not much point of making a script that no one else can use or understand, because that doesn't help anyone. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and go through this presentation, and then we'll go over a couple examples in our VM. So user input, there are two ways to get input. You can do it directly in the CLI from the terminal, where you pass in your parameter, or you can do it when the script is running through the read command. Okay. Input data parameter, we used this last time. I did the $1 because we're passing in one parameter, and that was the one that I needed. It is relatively simple. However, the sharp among you will know that order matters, and more importantly, when you're running a script and you're trying to pass in a parameter from the CLI, you don't know which order those parameters are in unless you already have that script memorized, and then maybe, but ultimately that's not a very good solution to that problem, which we'll get into how to fix that about midway through the presentation. But this is one way of getting inputs. It's not the best way of doing it. In fact, I would say avoid this way of doing it. So let's go over how to do it, just because you're going to see it over and over and over again, particularly if you're getting on Stack Overflow, because it's easy to do. But we'll show you the right way. Well, I don't want to say right way, the better way of doing it most of the time. Okay, so here we go. User input, passed in parameter, $1, echo the value of parameter 1, which is that, and then the parameter I passed in was this string. Okay, so value of parameter 1 was, my name is Justin. Okay. Same thing, I passed in 42, value of parameter 1 was 42. So a number, integer, string, doesn't matter, it's a passed in parameter. All right. Multiple user inputs. So if you're going to use the $sign technique, then it'll look like this. Okay, var1, var2, meaning life is 42. Okay, nice and easy. So user input after the script has started. This is a little bit better way of doing it. So if you start the script and you want to control how essentially your engineer or your network admin is actually doing the what parameters to pass in and guide them through the process, this is a really good way of doing that. However, it is logically intensive and it can take a little while to get it set up. So again, there's a better way of doing this. We'll get into it a little bit later in the presentation. But again, we need to show you how to do this one because you're going to see it this way as well. And sometimes this way is the best way of doing it, just depending on what you're trying to accomplish. All right. So you can get user input from the read command. All right. And then make sure to echo a message for the thing that you want them to input, because if you don't, the script will stop and the user's not going to know why. Okay, so we have our function up here, read file. So we got a little thing going on here, file found false. Okay, so we're going to run this at least once. Which file would you like to read? We're going to read current file, so they're expected to pass in a file. If current file is not a file, then we're going to run this, which is read file. So the function here, you probably didn't need the string parameter, and then echo file not found, and then rerun this loop until the file is found. So this is a pretty good way of running that. The only problem with this type of script is after the file is found, the script is going to stop. But if they just want to stop execution, they're going to have to hit the Control-C, which most of you engineers are going to know that. But if a normal person is running this script for some reason, they might not know how to do that. So a little thing, but with that said, this logic here would allow for a decent amount of flexibility. The only problem I can see with this with an actual trained user is going to be, okay, the file is not found, but it doesn't really give a reason why. So maybe that's something to think about if you're going to make a script like this, but overall, this is a pretty good solution for something simple like that. So, all right, options. This is where you're going to be using most of your user input. So you're going to want to create some options like we've been using all along. There's been a handful of things. -P for read is one of those things that we have done. -A for list all, we've used that as well. Those are options or switches depending on who you're talking to. So this is how you can be a little bit more flexible about which things you take in which order, and this is going to be the thing that you should probably be using the most. So you're going to be using the OPT ARG tag, so I'm assuming that stands for option arguments, all right? And then after that, that gives you the ability to be a little bit more flexible about what options you're taking. And then it gives you control over how to address them as well. So I'll show you that here. Here's your example of what we've been doing for a while now. Okay, ls, we want all, and then up a directory. Okay, get options. I already said that. Give you a second to read here. Okay, so creating options, while get ops, U and P, right? So this is how you define the switch, the actual letter of the switch itself. And then we're going to put this into a variable called options. Obviously, this is going to be an array. So we're going to run this while now, case option in, and then because we gave it a U and then a P, standing for username and password, we can set those parameters now from the opt argument, all right? And then after we do that, we can use those parameters now. So username, password, and then password. And then the result for that, because I put in password and username, and even though I did it this way, so I can show you that, okay, yeah, we had U and P, but I did this backwards, and it still works, okay? Okay, same thing. So if I put in a username, a real username, and then a real password, okay, still works. All right, so this is where you can pass in a parameter as a switch, and then based off of that switch, you can do some logic off of it, okay? So we still have our username and password here, and then we have this S option, and I'm going to use it for small down here. And then if small is true, we want to echo out username / password. It's a lot less text, and then it ends up looking like this. So username, password, and then we want that small option, so -S. So this is a good way of controlling, say, like formatting. All right. So script integrity, we talked about this early on in the presentation, where you have your options that allow for functionality, but you also need to make sure that the script itself is in a state to be run. And what I mean by that is you need to make sure that you have the right parameters. You need to make sure that everything is going to function as intended. So a good example of not having script integrity, if we were going to run a script and we are trying to, say, create a new user and there wasn't a username, why are you running user add if there's no username, right? So that's the type of thing where you need to make sure that you get all the parameters before you even run the actual script, which most of the bash scripting that I have done up to this point, most of the logic is based around, hey, you missed this parameter, so go ahead and please enter it for me, all right? With that said, let's get into a couple examples here. And if it wasn't clear, no input is one of the script integrity issues. Not enough parameters, which again is very similar to no input, just a little bit different in type. And then wrong input type. So if you're trying to give me a file and I find a directory, well, I need to make sure that I tell you that you gave me a directory and not a file, or that I didn't find anything at all. So script integrity, we have our read command here. We're going to wait for the user input. We're going to create animal. Okay, when animal is empty, we're going to make sure that we prompt the user to enter preference of a cat or dog, and then animal. Okay, so one problem that I see with this script already, and this goes down to script integrity as well, is that I never checked to see what the input of the user actually was. I just checked to see if it was a completed string or not. So I could have put in anything here. So one way to get around that is obviously to check that string. Hey, is it cat or dog? If not, then still run this string, but a correction for another time. Okay. So this is proving that this does actually work. Hey, was your preference cat or dog? Notice that there's nothing over here. Please enter your preference, cat or dog. I put in dog this time. Your selection was dog. As stated before, if I put in here bunny, it would say bunny. So logically speaking, that's not going to work, but this is doing exactly what we told it to do. Okay. Script integrity for parameters. So what this is doing is finding the number of parameters that we are looking for, and then if it equals 2, then 2 parameters are found. If not, 2 parameters are required. If we go over 2, this is still going to run as 2 parameters as required. So one of the things that we need to get a little bit better about with this, I know it's a simple example, but for a professional critique of myself is, okay, we have 2 parameters, but which 2 parameters? So if you use a programming language, you more than likely have run into a function where it uses overload properties, and it'll say, well, a minimum of 2 parameters, but it never really tells you which 2, and that's always been a problem. So if you have the opportunity to fix that, where it's just a little bit more usable and the time to learn for a script like this can be lowered, right, to make the entire company a little bit more productive, then it's worth a little bit of time to go through, these are the parameters that we're actually looking for. Please enter username and password instead of just 2 parameters are required, all right? Okay, same thing here. We're going to put in 1, 2 parameters are required, so that is working. Okay, input type. So this is an example of, well, this is regular expressions, first of all. And second, this is a way of checking to make sure that you actually got the right input, unlike what I did before with cat and dog, where I could have put in any type of string. This is checking for the year and making sure that we actually got a 4-digit year, okay? The other, please enter current year. Now, one of the things that could be happening here is we don't have the right, let's say, range of years, right? Where we could put in, let's say, 001, and that would still pass this condition. So again, another professional critique of myself. but script integrity can get difficult just depending on what you're doing. So regular expression, making sure this works, and then we're going to check year, which is defined up here, and then if it doesn't match our condition, then we're going to make them re-input year, and then we're going to echo out the year. So if we come back down here, please enter the current year, number, 2001. Oh, this is not 2001. This is characters. So 2001. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Please enter a number. I gave the example of 2012, 2001. Got our little dots in here showing that they are zeros. Current year is 2001. All right, so that is working as intended. It could be a little bit better, but that is the end of the slideshow. So with that said, let's go ahead and practice a couple of these. We'll do basically a full script. So let's go ahead and pull up Ubuntu here. Let's go ahead and open up code. Actually, just to practice, I'm going to pin this. Add to favorites. We are going to make this a little bit bigger. Just to practice getting around in the OS now. So we are in our home directory. So if I ls this is home directory. So just for practice sake, we're going to go to, let's go to var. Like this, and we will go to backups. Okay, so now we're in backups, just to practice getting around and getting back to the spot that we actually want to go to. So let's say for a second that I didn't know that I wanted to get the script, but I knew that, you know what, I need to see what is in my home directory. So here we go, ls tilde. This gives us a home directory. Notice that we're still in var backups, okay? So let's also say, okay, it sounds like it is in scripts that I want. So let's print the scripts that we're looking for. Okay, yeah, this is what I'm looking for, all right? So there's that. Now the question is how do I actually get there? Now, to not use tilde and to, again, get used to how Linux organizes itself, this is going to be in home and then scripts. Well, no, home, briggs.ja, scripts. So that's where that actually is located without having tilde do most of the work for us. So this is where that is located, ls. We're still in the same spot. So from here, I'm going to open code. And it opened up that entire folder for me. So instead of doing that like this through the GUI, where I can open up a folder, I already have it over here. So that is really helpful when you need it in the future. Okay, so we're going to close these, save. We're going to open up a new file. We're going to do user input for this, sh. I'm going to come back to terminal, again, just to practice what is going on here. So we're going to ls here, and notice that user input is still white and not green. So this is not executable. All right, so chmod user input.sh, and I forgot to give it the parameter. Here we go. Now we got that. And notice that user input is not executable. So we don't have that problem in the future where we go to run this and say, well, there's no command for this. All right. So as always, we need to start with bin bash. Creating user input with options. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here And then we're going to make this as thorough as possible. So we need to give ourselves a condition. So what condition should we do? We're going to end up doing user add eventually here. Yeah, we'll do user add. So the intent of the script for today is we're going to do user add. So we're going to need username and password. Well, we just need username. Let's make it a little easier on ourselves. With no password. Okay? So there's a couple of conditions that we need here. We need to make sure that the parameter that was passed in is a username. So that's going to be any type of string. We don't really have control over what usernames are formatted as. So username needs to be a string. Okay. Username cannot be empty. Username, no. Let's go, can be passed through the CLI. Username can be passed through the script. Read command. All right, and I think that is going to be it. So let's go ahead and make sure that I'm not missing anything for user add. So I'm going to go ahead and search that real quick. Going to make sure that we are accepting what we need. Okay, so this is one that I didn't consider right offhand, is using a home directory. New user needs home directory. Okay, there's that. And then we can display the result of the user add. That's going to be helpful for whoever's using this. Okay, so we'll get over, we'll get over user add for group ID later on in the course. Actually, we'll give them a password. I think we need to do that. So, and then we'll use then give user a password. Okay. So we're going to pull that down. So here's all the steps that we need to do. Okay, or at least account for. So needs to be a string. Username cannot be empty. Username can be passed through the CLI. Username can be passed through the script. New user needs to have a home directory, display the result for user add, and I'm going to move this up. Give user password, display result for user add. So this one's going to be a little tricky because usually I would just show the file that they've been added to. So for security purposes, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to say, hey, your script was run successfully. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and start this. So the first thing that we need to do is get our options set up. So, oh. Okay, and there's that. So while kit ops. So we definitely need a username. We definitely need a password. Options. Do case option in option case you. And if you guys haven't noticed yet, it's much easier to do this in something like a Visual Code rather than Nano or any other text editor that comes default with Linux. With that said, most of the time you're not going to have Visual Code on your Linux server, so take that with a grain of salt, and you might want to be practicing Nano as you go along, but you can do what you want because ultimately it's just a text editor. It's going to slow you down a little bit, but it's not something you can't learn. Okay, so username and password that we're getting in. So that's going to end our case. This is going to end our loop. Okay. So now that we have our options, if we have them at all, if we got anything at all, okay. All right, so the next thing that we need to make sure of is that these things are not empty. So we're going to do another while here. Okay, so this is a Z. We're going to end up using username and not defining it. Do, done. Okay, read. Username. Okay, we need our P here. Okay, we're going to copy this. Here's that. All right, password. So one thing that we need to point out here is, typically speaking, this is academic, obviously, but if you're going to have a script like this and you're going to set passwords, typically you're going to have a predefined password for the company. So something like Alfred State, I believe is your username plus your birthday, something like that. I forget, and it's been a long time. But there's going to be something like that at your company, even if it's as simple as 1234, and then they force you to reset your password at the end or after you log in. So that is a thing that you're going to have to worry about. But with that said, we can still make the user reset their password here, so I don't think it's going to overly matter. All right, so there's that. Check, make sure the password's not empty. Let's see what we have to do that's left. Okay, username needs to be a string. Username cannot be empty. So we need to make sure that this is not a number. Okay, so we have this where it is not where it's not empty. If it's empty, we got to do that. If it's yeah, we need a nested loop here. Okay, while tilde. So that should work. I might be wrong. I'll find out here in a second. There's okay, so instead of a while here, I think I'm going to use an if. Okay. And then I'm going to use an else here. Read. So there is that. Password can be anything that we want. I don't think we need that extra condition here. So let's go ahead and make sure that this logic works. So we are going to user input .sh, and now we're going to add some numbers. Yeah, of course. Okay, so we got that. That is running. We need another loop for if we separate these out, that should work. But you can overwrite it. Yeah, this has to be nested. Okay, so But then that's not going to run at all if we initially get a number. So what I think we're going to do here, instead of testing the variable itself, we're going to create a variable called username check, and we're gonna give it a false. While username check double equals false. Okay, now we're inside of this loop. This loop is going to run while okay, so we are going to need to check. We'll use an if statement here. If username we'll do a dash z here. Dash z username. Then fi, we'll move this up. If it's empty, we're going to get a false. There you go. Elif username check equals false. And then else username check equals true. Okay, so what this is doing here check username option, check to see if it's empty, check to see if there are numbers, and then this is where I mean, I'm not the only one that does this. A lot of developers do this too, where they go, we're going to check to see if there's numbers. Okay, cool. Why are we doing that? Okay, this is where you really need to put your comments in and go, okay, this is actually why we're doing this. Cannot have numbers in username, company, policy. And that is definitely wrong. Guidance. I think that's right. Company guidance. Okay, so there's that. So here's our while. Let's go ahead and put a comment here. There we go. So there's that. We have our while now. While username check equals false. I can change this back to an if statement. Okay, so that should work now. So we're running our error checking. We're going to run this in a loop when our, no, this isn't going to work, is it? Okay. I need to check both. This can't be an else if. It has to be a if like this. And the reason for that is because we need to check these both at the same time before we can give the go-ahead that this is correct. Okay, so if this needs a then, and I think what I'm going to do here is set two variables. Yeah, maybe not. Okay, I'm going to set these off as false for the moment. Just so I don't have to redo these. Okay. Username numbers equals true. True. Okay, username. Username cannot have numbers. Yeah, we can't assume that they're not going to put numbers even if we ask them not to. Although it's running the loop. So if we did this, let's change this back to a while. Do So this in theory should keep running until this is not true. And then same thing here. Do done. That also means I don't need these. Makes it a little bit more simple. That also means I can put this up here. So the reason why I just switched this is to make sure that if they made a mistake and they just didn't input something and they know that it's not supposed to have numbers, they're going to add this, and then we're going to check this condition and it's going to be false. So there's no reason to run this, which isn't going to match. Well, I guess it doesn't overly matter. So, but I've already done it. So okay, and one last check. So the reason why I'm doing this, sorry, the reason why I'm doing this down here is because I need to make sure that, okay, if we have this loop running and we're going to add the username, okay, cool. Let's assume that they had numbers in this. So this is going to run again, all right? And for them to get around the numbers, they don't put a username in at all. That's a problem because this isn't going to check for that, so I can't just put down here username equals false or true, where this is going to end that loop. So I actually need another check down here. So we need to make sure that username, that result equals 0, and username does not have 0 through 9. And I'm not sure if this is going to return me 1s or 0s or not. I'm pretty sure they do. I will find out here in a second. Oh, wrong thing. Then equals true. Okay. And that should end the loop if those two things are true. So what I'm going to do here is printf and make sure that username and the regular expression is returning what I think it's going to return. So I'm going to do one of these, and then I don't know if I can do it like this or not. Username, I don't know. Okay, there's that. Save. We're going to stop that. We're going to run this again. Syntax, error near 31. Let's go up. Why is that a problem? Oh. Here we go. Should fix that. Okay, syntax error near conditional expression on line 51. So one of the things I'm noticing is that on line 50, this printf, it didn't print anything. So I think it has something to do with this. Let's edit this. Save. Okay, no, I was wrong. It is on that line. Okay, so let's try doing it like this. Okay, so one of the things I'm noticing at this point, if I'm running this loop and then this check immediately after, I don't need to rerun the check that was ran in the loop. So I can make this much easier on myself and do something like that. Let's try this again. and it works. At least it seems to. Okay, so I'm going to put a comment here. Okay, make sure of that. Okay, so there's that. So we got down here. This seems to be working. Okay. Or is it? Because I didn't enter a username. Okay. So I'm going to give this a bunch of numbers, so that should definitely flag. Okay, yeah, this is not working. All right. Okay, well, at least I'm getting it now. So that is not flagging. It most certainly should. So I wonder. Okay, so what's happening right now is that my username check is coming back as false, which it should. That makes sense. But this while loop is not running. Or it is running, and then this one is not. Oh, because it's not empty, it has numbers. Okay, so we found our problem, the logic problem. But with that said, this should be running. So if I come up here and copy this, let's try this again. That did not work. Okay, so we can get rid of this. This seems to be working. Get rid of this. And then we're going to get to here. Echo username. Okay, so we know for a fact now that this loop right here is not running, even though username check. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's do this. Okay, yeah, we know for a fact now that this loop is not running. So if I come up here, and then I do right above it, echo username check. Save. There you go. Okay, so this is still running as false. So oh, I see the simple things, guys, the simple things. Here we go. So this should be working now. Username cannot have numbers. Awesome. I'm going to make this empty. Username is required for the script. I'm going to run numbers now. Username cannot have numbers. This seems to be working. Okay, so I'm going to do Briggs. Oh, 9989. Why not? Okay, password is required for new user. So our username check is now working. All right, so now the only thing that we need to do here is make sure that this isn't empty. So that is fine. Password is required for new user. For the future, we can do that. We're going to exit here, and now I'm going to run this script. I'm going to give it a username. Username cannot have numbers. Briggs99. Okay, let's use. Okay, yeah. There we go. And obviously we didn't run user add from here, but that loop seems to be working. So, okay, we have gotten that far. All right, what's next? What is next? Username can be passed to the CLI, okay, which we have done. Username can be passed to the script, okay, that's what we've done. Username cannot be empty, needs to be a string, okay. We did cannot be numbers either. Username needs a home directory. Give user a password, which is up there. Username needs, okay. So at this point, we need to actually run that user add command. So let's come down here. Run user add command. Let's go ahead and go back to this. Okay, so user add. We want the option of making a home directory, so M, and then we're going to add the username, which is a variable. So username, set password for user. This is going to be password D. And then let's make sure we got our options right. So one of the things that we wanted to do is when the user logged in that we have them set their own password. And I need to look up which switch that was. Okay, and it's E for expire. Expire, we're going to put in our password. Well, actually, we'll need the username. E-user, okay. Mm. Okay, so what was happening there is that password D doesn't have the ability to take a standard input. User add does. So we can use our password here on user add, and then after the fact, we can expire the user that we just created for the password itself. So this is going to force a login. All right. So there is that. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to print our result. So let's come over here. User was added. Okay. New line. Username is username, and then password So there's that. There's our message stating that everything worked. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to add a password right here. Real password. Username cannot have numbers. Okay, then it's my fault. Greg99. Okay, so there is our error message, or our result message, and then password deed permission denied. Okay, all right, so we have a problem. So one of the things that I'm interested to know is if password D, or user add for that matter, because right now we have both of these, there's got to be a way to check to see if we ran this as sudo or not. What I can do here is do it like this. And then it's going to force sudo. And then I'll do that. So what this is going to do is force you to run it as sudo. And then if it doesn't work, well, then if you don't have sudo permissions, then none of this will run. So you won't get that message anymore. So there's that. Come over here. Okay, that seems to work. Let's run this again, and I just won't give it a crap. Okay, let's end that terminal. Let's make a new one so I don't have the save sudo anymore. Okay. All right, so that seems to be working. There is at a minimum, a check to make sure that you're at least a sudo and running this properly. So there is that. And this seems to be working. So let's go find those users. So right there's Briggs99 and then the accidental 00 right here. And then I'm going to restart this real quick and see, actually the other thing I want to see is if I have everyone in the home directory, and I do. So there's that. Let's go ahead and restart this real quick. Crap. Oh, fine. Okay, let's minimize that. This is going to restart, and I should have the option to log in as those new users, and then it should prompt me to make a new password as well. Okay, let's go back. Let's try this one. I forgot which one it was. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get to that user. I'm going to run this as sudo. We are going to password D Briggs99. And I'm going to reset this password to something I can remember. Okay. So now I'm going to reboot. All right, so let's go ahead and try this now. And now we're logged in as that new user. It's going to take a second here. Here we go. And now that's working. So let's fix the resolution here. Okay, we're going to skip. Okay, fine, cool. Let's go away. Okay, so just to show you that this is working now, and we made that little script with a bunch of error checking. So we're doing pretty good on that front, and this video has went on for a long time. So, but with that said, it also shows you guys that the process of making something like that is one of trial and error and troubleshooting. Even me coming through here going in, and I've been programming for a little while, still goes and, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, right? Those things are not procedures. You have to troubleshoot your way through that script or through that logic and make sure that, okay, yes, this is going to work as intended in every single condition that I can think of within reason, right? So with that said, we will see you, actually, what is next? So next is going to be, Python. So yeah, we'll be going over Python real quick so we can use it for regular expressions. So Python is a pretty awesome language for readability standpoint and ease of use. It's not the best language in the world for straight out performance, but hey, it's a tool that you have. And something like this, you really don't need performance because you're not scaling it for a bunch of users like you would for a web application or web language. So yeah, Python's pretty cool. We'll go over the differences. Again, if you're not an Alfred State student here, we're not teaching you Python. We're going to be going over some of the differences and the things that we need out of Python for this course, and then that's all we're going to do. It's not a Python course. So with that said, we'll see you in the next one, which is Python.